And welcome to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. I hope everyone is doing well on this Tuesday morning. Lots and lots of topics to discuss today. But before we jump into that, please do me one small favour. Smash a like on the video, give it the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and let's get straight on into it. So, quite a few different topics to discuss today. We're going to be talking a little bit about Leroy Sane. Apparently, Manchester United are trying to sign him. His contract expires in 2025, which is next summer. So we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking and reacting to a story that said that Erik Ten Hag has apparently got 2 games to save his Manchester United career. And we'll also be talking about Harry Maguire apparently being put up on the transfer list in January. But some other bits to get into as well. As always, you can have your say in the comments section. Let me know your thoughts on everything we discuss on today's show. Okay, so let's start off by talking about the manager. Let's talk about Erik Ten Hag, because there was a story that came out yesterday and it feels like a very, very familiar story at the moment. The headline was that apparently Erik Ten Hag is on thin ice as Manchester United manager. I mean, it's quite obvious that he's on thin ice, you know? And it seems like these outlets just like to just put out the same story over and over again in different words. But the wording that they're using now is that apparently Erik Ten Hag feels like he's on thin ice. Okay, fine, that's believable. And that apparently he's got 2 games to save his career as Manchester United manager. Those 2 games being Brentford on Saturday and then Fenerbahce in the Europa League a week on Thursday. There probably is some truth in that, but we get that every single game now at the moment, don't we? It's like, oh, if he lost to Aston Villa, he'd be sacked. Oh, if he loses to this team, he'll be sacked. And Ineos haven't actually done that. And I think it seems like to me that Ineos aren't going to act on fan hysteria or media pressure. They're going to make calculated decisions. So I don't personally believe this story. I mean, if we go and lose 4-0 to Brentford and then lose 4-0 to Fenerbahce, then it's almost impossible for him to keep his job. But the one thing that's been really important from Ineos's general communication is it's about how the team are playing. That's where the biggest kind of issue is for Manchester United. They want to see an improvement. Obviously, if you lose a game, but you play really well and you have a bad VAR decision or, the other team score a goal in the last second or something happens, then you can kind of see some positives from it. But I think a lot of people, it's more the fact that, they don't see progress. That's where a lot of the concern seems to be, I think, with Manchester United fans, right? That we're into the 3rd year, or the beginning of the 3rd year. It's the 3rd season under Erik Ten Hag, the 3rd full season. And there hasn't been that much improvement if you look back to where we were in the 1st season. I would agree with that from a footballing perspective. I think there has been some improvements. I think, the style of play against Crystal Palace and a couple of other games earlier on in the season was quite impressive, But then there's also been some awful performances like against Liverpool, against Tottenham. And you could even argue to go away to, who was it we played in the Europa League? My brain's gone. Whoever it was we played in the Europa League and we were 2-0 up. Porto, yeah. 2-0 up against Porto and then you somehow, by half-time, it's 2-2. And you nearly lose that game if it wasn't for Harry Maguire, I mean, that's not great, is it? And it's not typical of what Erik Ten Hag used to do at Ajax, where he would control the game for 70% of the possession, everything. And people will say, oh, it's the Eredivisie, but he did very well in the Champions League, didn't he, Erik Ten Hag? So, yeah, we obviously know there's cause for concern. There's a lot of people probably watching this video today who have had enough and they want him gone. But I don't personally think that Ineos will just sack him if he loses against Brentford, because if they were going to do that, they may as well have just sacked him a week ago, Like, what's the point in being like, oh, if he loses the next game, we're going to sack him? To me, that doesn't sound like people who have a plan. You want people to have the next manager lined up. And I think at the moment, that is the struggle. They don't know who the next manager will be. And I genuinely believe, right, if there was a manager out there that they really wanted, I reckon he would have been sacked in the summer. And I think that's partly why he kept his job, because when they looked at the managerial market, they determined that based on who was available, he was the best option. That doesn't mean he's the best manager in the world. That doesn't mean that he's going to take us to win Premier League titles, etc., etc. I don't agree that he will, but it just meant at that exact moment, Ineos thought, you know what, he probably is the best person available at this moment. And I think that still is kind of the case because, the managerial market hasn't really changed much. Remember, it was only, 8 weeks ago that they gave him the contract extension. And since that point, there's not really been any sackings. There's not been any other managers become available. The available managers are the same. It's people like Thomas Tuchel. It's people like, Roberto De Zerbi's not even available now, you know? So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. But I would be very surprised if he gets sacked after the Brentford game, unless it's an awful result. You know, if we lose badly to Brentford at home, it would be very, very hard for him to keep his job. But I'd be interested to see what you guys think. Like, what do you think Ineos are actually thinking here? Like, what's their plan? Because that's the bit that kind of confuses me, you know? I would have no issue with Erik ten Hag losing his job if there was a plan in place, but I just don't feel like there is a plan in place. And I feel like they're kind of keeping him because they don't have any other option, to be honest. And also, obviously, the fact that they've given him a new contract extension and they'd have to pay him, like, what was it, £15 million to sack him. What do they then do with Ruud van Nistelrooy? What do they do with Rene Haak? Erik ten Hag has even come out himself and said that it was Erik ten Hag who appointed Rene Haak and Ruud van Nistelrooy. Like, they weren't Ineos appointments. They were Erik ten Hag's appointments. So they've not only given him a new contract or a contract extension, however you want to word it, but they've also let him employ his own assistant coaches who will be on big wages as well. So it's not only getting rid of £15 million for Ten Hag, you've then got to do something with Rene Haak and Ruud van Nistelrooy. And I know some people watching this video will be like, oh, you know, if we lose to Brentford, give it to Ruud van Nistelrooy. I mean, I just don't agree with it at all. And there's always this question as well that's been floating around that Ruud van Nistelrooy was brought in by Erik ten Hag, right? Would he then throw Erik ten Hag under the bus and say, I'm going to become the manager? I mean, that is really stabbing someone in the back, you know? It's not like Ineos forced Ruud van Nistelrooy on Erik ten Hag. It was Erik ten Hag's appointment. He's publicly said that. Ruud van Nistelrooy has said that Erik ten Hag called him and said that he wanted him at Manchester United. If 8 weeks into the season, Erik ten Hag gets sacked and then Ruud van Nistelrooy takes over as manager, I mean, I don't think that's a particularly good look for Ruud van Nistelrooy, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, just to react to this story that came out, I would be honestly shocked if Ineos are thinking, oh, if he loses the next game, we'll sack him. That doesn't make sense to me, because the obvious candidate to replace him is Thomas Tuchel, and he's currently in talks with England to become the new England manager. So if he goes to England, who are you left with? Gareth Southgate's already come out and said he doesn't want to manage another team for at least a year, so he's out of the equation. So that's Gareth Southgate and Thomas Tuchel probably out of the equation. You look further down the list, right? The next people on that list, I mean, it's like Michael Carrick, Graham Potter. Really? Like, no, not for me. And I just honestly don't think that that's what Ineos are going to be plotting. I think their hope will be, let's try and at least get to the summer. Maybe we win an FA Cup, a Europa League, you know? Try our best to get to the summer and then see how the managerial market looks in the summer. Like, that has to be what they're planning to do. Obviously, there was talks about the Inter Milan manager, Simone Inzaghi. He's a great manager, but I don't think he's going to come to Manchester United. Inter Milan are flying in the Serie A. Obviously, there was talks of Ruben Amorim. He's apparently got a release clause of about £15 million at Sporting Lisbon. So already, when you look at it like that, right? Say they bring in Ruben Amorim, that's £15 million to sack Ten Hag, £15 million in compensation to Sporting Lisbon. That's already £30 million. And then you have to do something with Ruud van Nistelrooy and Rene Haak. That's probably another 10 million. So, you know, to let Erik ten Hag go and bring in someone like Ruben Amorim, it's going to probably cost Ineos about 40-50 million pounds, which is absolutely crazy amounts of money. And not only does it cost all of that money, it also then makes you look at the squad you have, and Ruben Amorim might come in and say, you know what, De Ligt doesn't work in my system, Manuel Ugarte doesn't work in my system. This is just hypothetical, but like, usually managers want their own players. They want people who they trust and people that fit in their system. And this is why we've had so much problems over the years, because we chop and change managers so quickly. We invest so much money in each of those managers, and then the new manager comes in and he says, I don't like any of the players that you've got. Get rid of them. Then we sell them for huge losses and we restart the system, and it just goes on over and over and over again. We don't spend wisely, because every time a new manager comes in, we're buying to a different criteria. You know, and it makes a lot of sense. We spent, 200 million on players in the summer? Xerxes, obviously De Ligt, Mazraoui. We bought all of these players for Ten Hag to play Ten Hag's style of football. And 7 games into the season, we're going to say enough's enough, goodbye. Like, I don't know. We'll wait and see what happens. But let's move on from that and let's jump on over to Let's talk a little bit about Leroy Sane then, shall we? So this story is coming out from Plättigol, obviously very reliable journalist in the Bundesliga. And he is reporting this morning that apparently Manchester United want to sign Leroy Sane in the January transfer window. The reason for this is Leroy Sane's contract expires in June 2025. So he's only got 1 year left on his deal. Obviously, if he doesn't sign a new contract now, then Bayern Munich will be forced to sell him in January or lose him for free in the June. I think Leroy Sane's quality, and I think, the more I think about it, we desperately need to strengthen our wing players. Obviously, Greenwood left, Pellistri left, Sancho left. We lost 3 wing players in the summer, and we didn't bring in anybody. We've got Anthony, who doesn't even get played at all. You've got Amad Diallo, who I think is quality and definitely good enough to be a Manchester United player. And then you've got Rashford and Garnacho, who are both good players, but I don't think either of them suit a possession-based style of football. I think they're more like counter-attacking style players. And I think in a counter-attacking style team, Rashford and Garnacho are absolutely lethal. They're fast, they're quick, they're skillful, they can take on players. But as soon as you've got like a defensive block, a low block, and you're having to play the ball around, they're not the right type of players for that. They're too greedy, they're too selfish. Their focus is to drive at players and shoot, opposed to try and, slowly build the ball into the box. So someone like Leroy Sane could be interesting. 28 years of age, obviously ex-Man City player. I mean, that doesn't really matter to me. I know some people will be upset about that, but he was at Man City for 3 years, It's not the end of the world. Apparently, Arsenal are also interested in him. Transfer fee-wise, we're talking somewhere around 40-50 million euros, which is a lot of money, but I think for someone of his quality, it probably is worth it. Obviously, he can play as a right winger, a left winger, and he can play as an attacking midfielder. I think he'd be a quality signing, I do. He's not been actually playing that much for Bayern this season either. He's only played 32 minutes so far in the Bundesliga, which is not a lot really, is it? And he's only played 46 minutes in the Champions League. So Vincent Kompany clearly doesn't fancy him. And I do wonder whether maybe he's been told either you sign a new contract or you don't get played. Because last season, under Thomas Tuchel, he played pretty much all of their games in the Bundesliga. He got 19 goals and assists last season in the Bundesliga, and he got 4 goals and assists in the Champions League. So he did very well last season for Bayern Munich. But this season, he's just not really... he's just not had the opportunity. He's not been at it, which is surprising. But maybe, as I said, maybe it is because he's refusing to sign this new contract. So Bayern are effectively like, well, if you're not going to sign the deal, you can go. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that one. But I think he would be an interesting player. Yeah. What else have we got? Raphael says, why would you trade Amad for Sané? Sané can play, as I said, on the left wing, the right wing, and as a central attacking midfielder. He can play in any of those positions. Yeah, somebody in the chat saying it's because of Michael Elise. Yeah, of course. I forgot about Michael Elise. See, obviously Michael Elise moved to Bayern, didn't he? Yeah, that's obviously why then. That's obviously why. Okay, let's move on from that though, and let's jump on over to Harry Maguire then, shall we? So again, this is another player who is an opportunity on the market for other teams in the January window. Maguire's contract expires in January, and Manchester United apparently are willing to sell him in the January window. They're apparently asking for around £10 million. I mean, the thing with Maguire is, right, and this is going to sound a bit crazy, but he probably is one of our best centre-backs at the moment. Martinez and De Ligt have been terrible, absolutely awful. Johnny Evans has been quality. Lindelof's obviously not played. Lenny Yora's not played. But I would probably argue that our best centre-back partnership at the moment, right, and obviously just forget about like the name and forget about the memes and all the rest of it, but Maguire and Johnny Evans probably are our best centre-backs at the moment. Genuinely. It doesn't mean that Martinez and De Ligt can't, form a good relationship and they might turn it around. But at the moment, Martinez has been awful and De Ligt I think he's been okay, but I don't think he's been like world class by any means, and I don't think he's been any better than Maguire was, because he's not particularly quick, De Ligt, is he? You know, I know Maguire's like really slow, but it's not like De Ligt's rapid. He's quite slow as well. But yeah, I mean, with Harry Maguire, I think next summer is massive for Manchester United because obviously Harry Maguire, Lindelof and Johnny Evans, all three of their contracts expire in June 2025. So our only centre-backs will be Lenny Yoro, De Ligt and Martinez. So we probably need to sign another 2 centre-backs next year, which is pretty crazy to think, isn't it? When you think of how much other areas of the pitch we need to strengthen, and you think that next year we'll only have 3 centre-backs in our club, the other 3 will be leaving. And then you also think, right, we probably need a left-back, we need another midfielder, we definitely need another winger, I think. Maybe need another striker. Like we've got a lot of business still to do, and there's all these people who are like screaming, get rid of Ten Hag, blah blah blah. Like, and I get it. It's frustrating to lose matches. I know, I understand. But when you think of how much of a squad we still need to build, we're so far away, you know. And there's going to be a lot of change in the next kind of 2 or 3 years. All you have to do is go and look at the players' contracts who are expiring in the next kind of 6 to 12 months to kind of prove this point. So the players, so we've got Harry Maguire, Lindelof, Eriksen, Johnny Evans. So you've got those 4 players whose contracts all expire. So you're going to need another midfielder to replace Eriksen, and you've got 3 centre-backs leaving, 2 of which are probably our best centre-backs at the moment, Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire. I know obviously they're not on paper the best centre-backs, although I did actually see a stat the other day which compared Harry Maguire this season with Matthias de Ligt and Martinez. And Harry Maguire's stats were better than both of them in pretty much every single area. Tackles, blocks, progressive passes. Like, he has been quality this season. But that doesn't still mean that he's good enough for Manchester United. It just means that he's been better than Martinez and de Ligt, who are way off form at the moment. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what you think. Like, how are we going to, look at this going forward? So yeah, just to be very, very clear, it looks like Manchester United will extend his contract by 1 year and then apparently try and sell him in the January transfer window. I personally can't see anybody trying to buy Harry Maguire at the moment, but maybe I'm wrong. How old is he? Yeah, he's 31 years of age. So he'll be 30... He'll be 32 by the time his contract expires. I mean, it's not that old for a centre-back, to be fair. Centre-backs do play quite... I mean, Johnny Evans is 37. 6 years older than Maguire. So, yeah. I'm going to wrap the video up here. Feels like a good point to end the video. I've gone through all of the topics I had for today's show. Please make sure to drop a like before you leave. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. This has been Daily Red Devil. Have a lovely day, everybody. And I'll speak to you all very soon. Bye for now. Hello? What's going on out there now, Lovey?